Kyle, we're in the final hour. We're in the final hour of this program. How about that? Hey, Kyle, we're in the final hour. How about that?
Yeah, I know. I just said that. You'd know it if you weren't interrupting me.
I know you need to do all that concentrating to read.
I do because I ad-libbed the reading a little bit.
Jason, your thoughts?
Trucky, ducky, quack, quack.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that right from the boss?
Wow.
Would you like a programming update? Good, Kyle.
Nope.
Kyle and I will be taking some time. We'll be working through the holidays, just to be clear. But the station itself will work next week, and then we will have that Monday, Tuesday off for Christmas Eve and Christmas. We will then work. We'll be on the air live Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the days after Christmas. And then we will be off the following Monday, Tuesday for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and then back that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Such a strange time of year.
Why?
Because I feel like we have short week, short week. Then we have a couple regular weeks, and then you take your annual vacation.
Yeah, then I will, if we want to look far ahead, and everybody can just mark this down on their calendars.
So put it in. Stop what you're doing. Pull to the side of the road.
And by the way, Matt Barrows is coming up in just a second. Just for everybody out there who's constantly whining at me, I have a decent amount of vacation time saved up. We're working through the holiday. That's fine, with the exception of those 2 days. I'm not whining. I'm happy to do it.
And that's not taking vacation.
Right. No one's taking vacation. So in February when I'm gone for a week, and in March when I'm gone for 3 days, just don't go, oh, Dave gets vacation all the time.
I think it's a bit. And
it is. And I bite every time.
You getting mad.
I'm so sensitive about it.
It's really
I really
funny.
am. I'm very sensitive about work ethic.
I also make sure when I fill in to get everybody to harp on you about it. Yeah. Like, Dave is taking another vacation. Unreal.
Don't worry. If you really want to get on me, wait till the summer. That's why I'm saving it all up. I'm literally taking again, provided my contract's renewed in June and I still have a job. I'm going to try to take like half the summer off. Maybe not. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but at least I'm going to take more time off in the summer than I'm taking off right now. I don't make any bones about it. I can't. I hate this job in the summer. I hate it. I hate coming in July, having a 3-hour show in front of us and being like, okay, well, the Giants lost and the A's won, and who's the greatest third baseman of all time? Your thoughts? Sometimes they're great shows.
It's probably Chipper Jones because Alex Rodriguez is a shortstop. Let's be real.
You know what's silly is
Mike Schmidt is pretty underrated.
I was looking at year-to-year ratings for this time slot.
Brooks Robinson, of course.
Been in here for a while. The summer's actually the second highest book we get. Behind the winter book, which is, because you have everything going on, Super Bowl and NBA, blah, blah, blah. Some reason, summertime people, I don't.
It's because we just go off the rails.
I think it is.
And that's when we put together our best content. Do you want me to call Matt Barrows?
Yeah, call Matt Barrows.
I'll call Matt Barrows.
And text from you at 441140, brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Kyle, before you call Matt Barrows.
Yeah, before I call Matt Barrows, I want to let everybody know that it's time to call your local Geico agent, Vince Harris, at 916-923-5050. That's 916-923-5050. Vince Harris Hive in the house.
Shout out Vince Harris. Also, want to point out the text line brought to you by Jiffy Lube at 441140 and the video cast. So many of you have been watching the video cast. I think we've grown week to week to week since we started this whole thing a couple months ago. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate you guys watching. You can watch all 3 hours of this show at khtk.com. If you're on a desktop or a laptop, it's right at the top of the screen. If you're on a phone or a tablet, towards the middle, right where it says Listen Live, and then you'll see the video of us. You'll see me with this weird thing going on with a rat tail in my hair. I don't know what the heck that is. What is that? What is that called when you have the one curl in the back? I don't know. It's something weird. And a Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon shirt. Yeah, that's right. I don't have much to do on the text line here, guys. There's some people listening, obviously on the podcast, which Kyle's already put up the first hour, taking umbrage with me saying Reggie McKenzie's a top 10 GM. Okay, well give me 10 more that are better than Reggie McKenzie. The text it in. And from the 209, Dave, if you listen to Jim Barnett from the Warriors, he keeps saying the Kings are going to be really, really good in 1 to 2 years. That's some great praise coming from the Champions play-by-play guys. Love Jim Barnett.
Jim Barnett's really good at his job.
You know who else is really good at his job? I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with Hat Marrows. Nope.
Flat Darrows?
Matt Barrows of The Athletic. You can go to theathletic.com. Just click on 14Niners. One of the many great things about The Athletic I love is you can curate the feed. So I've got Niners, Kings, Giants, Florida State football. That's all kind of curated, so that's what comes up. You can watch the coverage of any team, but you can kind of make the feed your own. And as we've said many times, and not just because he's on the air with us each week, nobody covers the San Francisco 49ers. Imagine being a beat writer for a team that didn't win a football game last weekend. Matt can't imagine it, and he joins us right now. Hello, Matt.
Oh, hey, guys. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm doing well. I didn't know that you were a Florida State guy.
My mom and dad are both Florida State graduates back in the 60s before they were good at the football. I had no choice. I was born into that is basically my family's religion is Florida State football. And golly, quite lucky. This is the first year in my entire life, Matt. I'm in my very early 40s. First time in my life I have experienced a Florida State football team below 500 this year.
Oh, yeah.
This year. Yeah.
When I was at UVA, that was the first year that Florida State joined the ACC, and it was like a bunch of welterweights, and then the heavyweight joins the gym. And they just beat the crap out of every team. So beating Florida State was like the holy grail, and UVA turned out to be the first ACC team to beat Florida State when Tiki Barber was there, and was one of the greatest moments of my life. I'm not going to downplay it. It was awesome.
Matt, it's just you and I now. Dave exited the studio. He's very unhappy with that.
Not that I remember that game, Matt. I don't remember Tiki Barber and his amazing play also on special teams. I do not remember Bobby Bowden calling a draw play with Warwick Dunn. That was stopped at the 1 yard line. I don't remember any of that. I also don't remember being near tears after that game. It's just and that's what happened.
Because you lost one?
That's the thing.
You can't even lose one, and it just like ruins your life? Wow. What arrogance.
I was just going to say that as a lifelong Kings fan, it is the arrogance of we lost a game against Virginia, which was like we were like 98-0 in the ACC before that, and then a spoiled ass like me had no idea how to deal with that type of. Now, were you at UVA when? Did you say you were at UVA when?
Yeah. Wow. I was a senior, or what we call fourth year.
You weren't redshirted.
Yeah, I was redshirted, but I remember we all rushed the field, and I remember this very clearly. There was a little wall, say, I don't know, 5.5 foot wall made of brick. And everybody just, gets to the top of that wall and you jump off. Well, it was my turn to jump off. And there were all these people coming behind me and basically shoving me off the wall. A girl had jumped off and she had like sprained her ankle like right below me. And if I jumped off, I was going to crush her. And so I just had to nail my landing to avoid her sort of tuck and roll thing. And it was very, very precarious. But I remember that very, very clearly. What do I do in this situation?
Matt Barrows of The Athletic joins us. If it's up to me, we talk Florida State, Virginia for the rest of the
well, we do have to talk Brian Burns at some point, but maybe not this segment. But at some point between now and April, we got to talk Brian Burns.
Yeah, I feel like every week, like last week, it was presidential history.
That's right.
This week, it's Florida State, UVA. We'll do Brian Burns next week.
Okay, it'll be Brian Burns week.
Hey, I want to switch from fun to something semi-serious and heartwarming. We're going to have Arik Armstead on here in about 20 minutes, and I'm going to ask him the same question. But The untimely passing of Jed York's younger brother, Tony, hit the team over the weekend. It was announced, I believe, Saturday that he passed away on Friday. And they had cameras in the locker room capturing Kyle Shanahan and then Jed York's postgame speech. And to be honest with you, I was aware of the news, Matt, but then when the game came around, I wasn't really even thinking about Tony. I was thinking about the game. And then I saw the win, saw the postgame speech, and went, oh, my goodness, that this was a game a lot of people didn't expect the Niners to win. Certainly Las Vegas didn't, but though they did not play perfect, they played pretty damn well. I would imagine in that locker room it was a very a happy post-game, but also very poignant post-game as well. Great timing for a win for the York family, which obviously has been struggling quite a bit this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there was a little bit of magic in the stadium, and you described that post locker room scene, and then Shanahan goes straight from that to his presser, where we're all gathered
right.
In an auditorium, and you think that he's going to be very ebullient and happy after just the third win of the season. Well, he gets up there and he's still in that state of emotion that he had been in, handing the game ball to Jed York, and then listening to Jed York give really a very very nice and strong. I mean, I don't know how I would be in that circumstance, but I was impressed that Jed was able to get through it. So that was the situation that Shanahan left to go talk to us, and he was still wrought when he began his post-game presser with the media, which was a little surprising, like you said, because you're just thinking about the game, you're thinking about the win, you're thinking about all the questions that you're going to ask about the win, and he really brought it back down to earth, really. And I thought that they did a nice job handling what was a very, very unexpected and difficult situation.
Matt Barrows with us. One thing that we're starting to pick up on, and I don't know that all these guys will fit in or be here next year, but obviously a disappointing year for the 49ers, revolving around the Jimmy Garoppolo injury. But when looking at offense, you saw Jeff Wilson, the rookie, playing, I think you noted, 62 of 72 snaps in his first NFL start. You have Matt Breida. You're getting Jerick McKinnon back next year. I'm assuming Marquise Goodwin will be back, and he's a burner. And Dante Pettis is starting to establish himself. So are we, in your opinion, Matt, and we aren't even talking defense, starting to get to a point towards the end of the year where maybe the Niners, through what they have in those young guys in the draft, have maybe a little bit more to work with than maybe we thought they would when Garoppolo first went down?
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's one of the silver linings that we'll be able to take away from a really bad year, is that this offense has been able to operate no matter who's been in there. I mean, we're down to the third-string quarterback. We're down to a fourth-string running back, and they're still able to move the ball and to win the game on Sunday. And I think that's important. And especially with Jerick McKinnon, you see so many instances of guys being knocked out for a season and then coming back the next year and still really not being themselves, and it may, there's no indication that there's any hiccup at all with Jerick McKinnon, but you just can't count on the guy, I don't think, when he's had a devastating injury like he has. But the mitigating circumstances that it seems like the 49ers have an awful lot of weapons, especially at that running back spot, in case there is a hiccup, in case there is a hamstring injury that pops up that costs him a couple of weeks, or this and that, which is probably going to be the case. But now you've got Matt Breida, you got Jeff Wilson, you didn't even mention Raheem Mostert. He should come back 100% very early on, maybe even February, from that grisly broken arm. So that position seems like there are at least a lot of bodies and a lot of options in case there are issues next year. The offense shouldn't sputter, I guess is my point. You should be able to plug in guy A, B, or C and still have a lot of production from that running back position.
Matt, a young player on the 49ers that not a lot of people have been talking about, I've noticed, is their tight end, George Kittle. Does his performance this year, do you think, eliminate their need for like a big-bodied number one wide receiver, or is that still something that this offense needs on the perimeter?
I think it's pronounced Keitel, but I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. It's a good question. I mean, it may be a moot question because those big-bodied number one receivers are like unicorns. I mean, they're just not a lot of them available out there. So the 49ers may have to be content with either what they have or with going with a lower-tiered free agent who's available on the market. I've taken a quick look at the types of guys who are going to be available in free agency. Not a lot of big names stand out. I mean, there are some names, but certainly none that are more prominent than, say, Pierre Garçon was 2 years ago when he was a free agent. So I think that's the level that we're looking at, and I think at that position it's going to be more a factor of, okay, what kind of strides does Dante Pettis make? What kind of strides does Kendrick Bourne make, et cetera? Does Trent Taylor get back to his pre-injury form? But you're right. Having a tight end like that does take some of the pressure off this team to come up with that number one type wide receiver, because the numbers that he's having game in and game out, touchdowns, big plays, yards after catch, are those of a T.O. Or a Julio Jones. I mean, they're getting that production from the tight end position.
Matt Barrows with us of The Athletic. And Matt, in your article this week, or one of your articles this week, you alluded to the idea that we might have seen the last of a handful of 30-somethings on this team, Malcolm Smith and Earl Mitchell. Malcolm Smith was active. Earl Mitchell played 2 snaps on coverage. And Pierre Garçon, gone. Arthroscopic surgery, finishes the year. Do you think we've likely seen the last of all 3 of those guys?
I think so, probably. I mean, I think maybe some guys more than others. I thought it was interesting that, basically Malcolm Smith and Earl Mitchell were available to play and would have played had there been an injury or had their understudy struggled, but at nose tackle, DJ Jones had a very good game. He's a second-year player, a guy who stood out in the preseason, and it just seems like they're ready to give that nose tackle spot to him. So I would say it's very much, the likelihood is such that Earl Mitchell wouldn't come back. And then Malcolm Smith, he's just been dealing with injuries the last 2 years. He's making a lot of money. He's going to be 30 when training camp begins last year, and he's only started a handful of games for this team. And then his understudy, Elijah Lee, played pretty well. I do think that the 49ers are still going to have to bulk up that inside linebacker spot, but Lee played well enough that, he's one of the options I think that they're going to have at that weak side linebacker spot. And then at that wide receiver, this is the second year that Pierre Garçon, who's I think he is either the 4th or the 5th highest paid player on the team, is going to end the year on IR, and he's in his mid-30s. Guys in their mid-30s don't usually have a fountain of youth. It's usually if you start having injuries, that's going to be sort of the MO from here on out. So, it's hard to see him coming back as well. And they might have to go into free agency and find a veteran to play that spot to push the Dante Pettises, the Kendrick Bournes, or maybe the 49ers decide let's allow Pettis and Bourne to push each other. But I would think that they would have to add one more sort of experienced guy at that spot during free agency.
DJ Reed initially saw the field this year as a free safety, but he got the start at nickel corner this week with K'Wan Williams out, and he performed really well. Do you think his future with this team is at nickel corner or at free safety?
Well, I think for the short term, he'll probably be both. They do like K'Wan Williams at nickel, and he signed for a couple more seasons. But, boy, I mean, he just looked like he was in his element. DJ Reed was around the line of scrimmage playing that nickel spot. 0 missed tackles. He even had a sack. He had a forced fumble. He's a very rough and tumble guy, and he was telling us after the game that free safety, it requires a lot of judgment and thinking. And nickel cornerback requires a lot of just reacting, and that's what he's used to. He was a cornerback at Kansas State. Nickel cornerback is much more similar to what he did. He just felt much more comfortable there. Now, whether he ultimately can become a very good free safety remains to be seen, but like I said, he just seemed like he was at home there, especially doing the rough stuff around the line of scrimmage.
That's Matt Barrows of The Athletic. You can read Matt all week long, getting the right after a win. And by the way, I got to ask you this before I go. Is anyone on that team and anybody in that front office in a situation like that in Denver? And even for a guy like John Lynch going up against John Elway, and there's a lot of common ground between the two of those guys, a lot of mutually shared dirt. Anyone thinking about the draft implications, or they just want to get a win and screw it?
Well, I mean, that was the beauty of the win, is that they got the win, and they didn't lose any ground in the draft race. I mean, it was a win-win in that sense. But I'm sure all of that goes through their mind. Right now they're on a crash course for Nick Bosa, and he's just perfect for what they're lacking on that defense. And boy, you would you can definitely envision a scenario where they eke out a win here in these last 3 games. Some other team gets Bosa, and Bosa turns out to be like a 16-sack guy.
Right.
And the 49ers, was that win over the Bears that important to the future of the team? But that's how it turns out sometimes. Sometimes you draft Michael Jordan, sometimes you draft Sam Bowie. It's the luck of the draw a lot of the times, but it's going to come down to the 49ers, the Raiders, or the Cardinals. I mean, they're all kind of bunched together there, and it's also going to come down to some of the teams that they played earlier this year, since strength of schedule is the first tiebreaker. So if say the Giants, who at one point were up 40-0 on the Redskins in their game, get hot at the end of the season, and their strength of schedule, I mean, that would mean that the 49ers' strength of schedule gets a little bit better, which hurts them in the draft. So there's a lot of intangibles attached to all this that ultimately will determine who gets the number 1 pick.
You can read them at theathletic.com, which you should. You heard the cross-sport Michael Jordan, Sam Bowie reference. That's that UVA education for you. He is an all-around.
That's ACC, buddy.
Yeah, that is. It's absolutely right. We will talk to you next week about just run the gamut of subjects, Matt. Maybe we'll get to football while we're at it.
Yeah, little Brian Burns. Brush up on your Brian Burns. We're going to talk about him all morning long.
I am going to be a Brian Burns expert, and we will just go at it we'll go in a special 45-minute segment on that, Matt.
Brian Burns' biographer, Carmichael Dave, today issued a statement. Yeah, I like it.
We'll talk to you next week. Take care, brother.
Okay.
All right, bye. It's Matt Barrows. Matt, do you think we should talk again in December? Well, we're to say, what about January? Late January, maybe we should talk to Matt?
Or maybe even February?
Earlier, Kyle said that he hates Sacramento.
And Kyle's right.
Whoa.
I did not say that.
Wow.
Let's not know, because there's people who have not been listening to the whole show, who might have just tuned in. I did not say that.
Yeah.
I need that on the record.
Did Doug say this?
Doug Christie has guys.
Whoa.
We all do. I don't see why
I got
that's
my
a big
guys.
deal. You ever have De'Aaron Fox slide into your DMs?
So I
Nope.
can slide in whoever DMs I want to slide in.
Well,
That's a great point.
that's why. That's why he takes control. I haven't played a lot of these in a while. Jason?
That was G-Man.
Yeah, that was G-Man.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA jerseys.
See? All right, we got to take a break.
Don't go away just yet.
No, you don't have to go away.
Oh, boy.
Dude, we gotta get a break.
Arik Armstead's going to join us next. We'll ask him about that 49er locker room. We'll also ask him about
Frying a
just
49ers beat guy.
ethering that guy. We're going to have fun with Arik Armstead. Sacramento's Own next, right here on Sports 1140 KHTK.
This is Kyle Madson with your top stories on Sports 1140. Hey, the Kings won last night, 108-89. They finished up a 4-game road trip with 3 wins and just 1 loss. De'Aaron Fox had a great game last night. 25 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and 4 steals. The Kings are off today. They return home to face the Minnesota Timberwolves tomorrow. The Oakland Raiders announced yesterday that they've relieved Reggie McKenzie of his duties as the team's general manager. And the 49ers announced yesterday that wide receiver Pierre Garçon's season is over. The 32-year-old will have surgery on an injured knee that's kept him out of San Francisco's last 4 games. It's 8:31. Time for Squeaky Clean to clean your gutters. Visit squeakyclean.com. Those are your top stories. Now back to the drive on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Here we go. The drive continues now.
Normally, this is Kyle Madson's Cold Hard Facts, brought to you by Coors Light. We're going to move that. We'll combine what's on tap and Cold Hard Facts here in the next segment. What's on Facts, Cold Hard Tap. Find a way to combine that. It's all brought to you by Coors Light anyway, because not really a ton on tap tonight anyways. Not really a ton on tap tonight anyways. No Kings. No football. Kings in action, though, tomorrow against Minnesota. Our thanks to Matthew Barrows for joining us today. We've been talked a little bit about last night's Monday Night Football win for the Seattle Seahawks. Either they were very impressive or Minnesota looked like garbage, or a combination of both. And also a lot about the Kings. 3-1 on the road trip. 3-1 on the road trip. Come on, Mike. Kyle, tell me what's going on here. You're giving me a shaked head, a shookened head.
I'm getting an all circuits are busy message.
I wonder if that's our phones.
I have no idea. I called Matt Barrows just fine.
You did call Matt Barrows just fine?
Yeah. I'm going to try a couple things.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just fill here, pal. Don't worry about that. You can try calling him on, worst case scenario, call him on your cell and ask him to call in on our inside line. There's an idea. See, I'm doing everything. Doing everything we can to get Arik Armstead on the phone. I want to ask him about his tweets yesterday. From the 209, you guys got to ask Arik about his tweets. Personally, I think the tweets were inappropriate. You guys will probably go easy on Arik. I couldn't disagree more. I think they were absolutely appropriate. I as a member of media, LOL, I'm perfectly fine when athletes go after media members. Now, if they're being oversensitive, if they're getting ridiculously personal, that's one thing. But I think this guy has gone after Arik for a while, and Arik finally cracked back, and then everybody gets super sensitive. And one thing that happens, and listen, I've been guilty of it too. You say, oh, this guy should be cut. He's dog crap. He belongs in... He couldn't block a whatever. Well, you're talking to one of the best players in the world, and I understand it's all relative. You don't have to be nice to these guys. But yesterday, this writer, or I shouldn't say yesterday, Sunday, I believe, a writer went after Arik a bit, and Arik called him an amateur fanboy wannabe reporter who sells insurance during the day. Well, we'll clear that up. Nothing wrong with selling insurance. In fact, it's a fine job. Fine job indeed. This can always be taken interesting. They say you have no qualifications to speak on what I should be doing in a football game. I do believe you don't have to have played the game to talk about the game. But I understand when you're blowing off steam. There's a thing. There's a thing there, and you have every right to crack back. We're still having problems with his phone number. All right, I'm going to text his guy here, who set this up. It's saying the same thing on your cell number too, buddy.
No, it didn't even ring when I called, so I sent a text, and I'm hoping that works.
Okay,
so we'll see. What you were saying, though, about that's one of the things that I think I regret the most from when I was first on Twitter, was I would just get like angry at media people. And I've had a couple of media people block me. And it's like, man, that was dumb. Like, I said a mean thing to somebody that I don't know to try and get retweets. And so I really try to watch it now. Unless it's you. I'll say mean things to you on the internet.
Well, that's unfortunate. What do you say mean things to me for?
Because it's funny.
I listen. I think sometimes we all make that mistake, and then when the person cracks back,
and
it's like, oh man, I was just kidding, or oh,
it's also worth noting that this was not a beat reporter.
Right. That phone number might work. I just got you, Kyle. As we were having phone issues with Arik. Either way, I'm okay with it. I'm absolutely okay with it. Media should not be. I don't believe media should be sensitive. You go after somebody. If somebody goes after your kid, we know what the line is. But you can't sit back and it's media's job to criticize. That's the job. But when you get cracked back on, yeah, I get it. You know who I'd like to bring on next? I don't know if you can find this type of guest, Kyle.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring on a defensive end who is top 3 in the NFL in run stops.
Okay, that really limits my number of people. Luckily, I think there's somebody local.
How about a top 20 overall edge defender?
Okay, that's okay.
All right, and then I'm going to further narrow it down. How about a guy who's in town today for his annual visit to the UC Davis Children's Hospital, where he brings toys and signs apparel for a ton of kids over there? Find me that guy.
That sounds pretty cool, but
Awesome.
I think we can do it.
And a native Sacramentan? Okay, let's see if we found him. The one, the only, San Francisco 49er, Arik Armstead. Arik, it's Dave, it's Kyle. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good, man. You're up here today. You're going to go to UC Davis Children's Hospital, as I understand from our mutual friend Jay, and that puts a lot of things in perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's the 3rd year I've been doing this, and it's always been a good experience. And, when you go in a place like that and just trying to spread joy to people who are going through a hard time, it definitely puts things in perspective. Any problems that are in my life seem so minuscule in the grand scheme of things.
Now, speaking of perspective, you guys went out there and got yourself a win against the Broncos on Sunday. I think George Kittle is still gaining yardage, and I think you guys are still running all around the field on defense. After the game, though, again, speaking of perspective, quite the emotional scene, and we were lucky as fans and media to be able to see a camera on Kyle Shanahan and then on Jed York. Speaking of the untimely passing of his brother Tony, who was just 35 years old, got the game ball. Mentioned he was going to leave a ring when you guys did win a championship for his brother, and he had you guys look at each other at one point. And I'm paraphrasing, but understanding that you would be champions someday. We can look at that on video and get teared up, but maybe share with us what you can about being in that locker room and the emotional scene.
It was definitely emotional. That was a loss close to home, close to our owner, being his brother, but close to our organization. He was a big supporter of us. And, that was a time that, everyone was thinking and praying for the York family and for us to go out there and get a win and bring some happiness to the family and the organization, was a big deal. And it was definitely emotional. And, they're going to continue to need a lot of prayer and a lot of thought. But just to go out there and get a win, to be a bright spot in a dark place was huge.
Arik Armstead joining us, a local kid made good for your San Francisco 49ers. Big win on Sunday. So we talked about the off the field and obviously very emotional there, but on field, that you guys played, as Richard Sherman said, you guys played like foot straight on the gas, no break at all on defense, flying all over the place. Did you feel a little more loose, a little more comfortable on Sunday? What was it?
Definitely had a good day on defense. I feel We brought the energy from the start of the game and, carried it throughout the game. I think we were inspired. Something about this team, even though, you look at our record and it doesn't look too pretty, we still play hard, and we're trying to beat whatever team we're playing against. And, it may not go our way all the time, but at least we know that we're going to come out there and we're going to play hard and we're going to fight and try to win. So that's all you can ask for, and, we're able to get it done on Sunday.
And that's something that's been impressive to me watching you guys week in and week out is, like you said, you're sitting with a 3-10 record, but you guys are playing every game like you're fighting for a playoff spot. Is that just a matter of the belief you have in each other? Is that the coaching staff? What is it that has you guys going out there and continuing to compete at that level?
Just playing for each other and the brotherhood we built as teammates, and realizing that life is short and your career is even shorter, and just taking advantage of those moments and those opportunities you have to be on a football field. They don't last forever, and so going out there and enjoying those moments and trying to put some good film on tape and play to your best of your ability, that's all you can really think about.
San Francisco 49er Arik Armstead with us. All right, before we let you go, I want to have some fun because your Twitter is fun to follow sometimes, and we were having a nice conversation before you came on. We're in the media, sort of, but media's job is to write about, critique players, but what I often find amusing is how much some people in the media clutch their pearls when an athlete actually cracks back at him. And you'd had a guy that had said some fairly unflattering things. Arik, I'm going to guess that you're fine with criticism of your play, but you also probably have a line that shouldn't be crossed, and this guy you were going after, I'm guessing, crossed it.
I think, for whatever reason, he just has a personal vendetta against me, and I feel as though when a reporter who supposedly has some credibility that people follow continues to lead fans and talk bad about you like you're not playing well, and so I was just tired of the negative narrative being put on my name by this person, so I just decided to let him know how I felt about him. But in retrospect, I'm in a lot of situations. Not respond to a lot of things, but I feel as though it was personal for him, and he had a vendetta against me and continued to try to create this negative narrative on me, and decided to stand up for myself and talk about it.
Arik Armstead with us. Lastly, Arik, but to me, clear the one thing in your conversation with him, I just wanted to clear up for all the insurance salesmen out there is that you don't dislike insurance salesmen. Insurance salesmen are it's a fine, respectable business, I would imagine. You didn't mean anything like that.
No.
It looks like we lost Arik. We had I put him on hold. Just go ahead and I would have liked to have heard that response, but what we got out of it that was important was no. What we got out of that is that no, he was not disrespecting insurance salesman, because at one point he said, I noticed, this is to the reporter that he was going after, I noticed you're never in the locker room anymore. Probably got your credential revoked. Don't know how an insurance salesman got one in the first place. But Arik may have gone into a bad area, but what we did get out of him when I said, were you disrespecting insurance salesman? He said no. And that's what's important.
I also liked what he said, and we got to hit the break, but I like I said, knowing who the reporter was, the person was that he was talking about, It wasn't, guys like Matt Barrows and Matt Mayoko and guys like that who are on site every day.
Right.
Who give, legitimate inside analysis. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some people who, were kind of silently nodding. That's all.
I'm fine with it.
I thought it was great.
I'm even better with a guy that stays close to his roots in Sacramento and comes up and does great things for kids at UC Davis Children's Hospital, which I can't imagine a better charity to be behind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Than that. We'll take a break. And our thanks to Arik Armstead for joining us. When we get back, what's on tap? And a Kyle Cold Hard Fact brought to you by Coors Light. We'll fit all that into next segment right here on Sports 1140 KHTK. What's on tap? Brought to you by
I got nothing.
I got nothing. Sometimes rather than forcing something, saying I got nothing or just simply I don't know, it's really underrated. Next time somebody asks you a question and you don't have a good answer, instead of forcing something you'll regret, just simply say, I got nothing. All right. See, I'll make anything work, Kyle.
Exactly.
Let's go being a pro.
I knew you would.
What's on tap tonight? Not a lot. No football. No Kings. The Kings in action tomorrow night versus Minnesota. Friday versus the Warriors. We're going to do a kind of a double take here, though. Since we don't have a ton of what's on tap, we had Arik Armstead, who we appreciate, join us on the Fire Wings hotline. 21 different flavors to choose from. Firewings.com. Just wing it. We're going to switch on the fly here. Do we have the voice guy ready for your segment here? All right, it's Kyle Madson's Cold Hard Facts brought to you by Coors Light.
It's time for the Coors Light Cold Hard Fact of the Day. Here's Kyle Madson.
There's Kyle Madson right there. Kyle, Cold Hard Facts brought to you by Coors Light. What do you got?
I have a break. I have a cold hard fact brought to you by or from somebody else.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay, good job.
I made it.
Perfect, dude.
I made it.
Fantastic.
I scrolled down on the page that I was going to read this off of and saw a word and started to say that word instead, and that really threw me off. Okay. So, Adam Ottavino, Major League relief pitcher.
Yeah, Adam Ottavino.
Had a really good season this season. 75 games. He had a 2.43 ERA, 112 strikeouts, and 77 2/3 innings. He said on the MLB StatCast podcast that he would strike out Babe Ruth every time. He said, I had an argument with a coach in AAA about Babe Ruth's effectiveness in today's game. I said, Babe Ruth with that swinging that bat, I got him hitting $140 with 8 homers. And he's right. I could not agree more with Adam Ottavino. That is a cold, hard fact.
That
Babe Ruth would stink. If you picked up Babe Ruth from 1922 and dropped him into a lineup in 2018, he would not be a very good hitter.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we can go past further than Babe Ruth, and certainly there's exceptions. I think if Ted Williams lived today, I think if Mickey Mantle lived today, et cetera, but overall, and this goes for pretty much every sport.
You think those guys would be effective today?
I think, here's the thing. I think if you plucked them out of 1927, for example, for
Ted Williams wasn't even born yet.
I'm talking about Ruth or DiMaggio, those Yankees, the Bronx Bombers, and you just you put them straight in a time machine versus the other, which is if they were born in this era, same person, and got the same advances in medicine and strength,
sure,
et cetera.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and old heads hate this, and I understand it as I get closer to old head status. Athletes today are better than athletes back then. And in the case of Babe Ruth, we're not even talking about advances in the game, sabermetrics, positioning of fielders, distances of parks. We're not talking about the fact that you had, black people weren't allowed to play against you.
Right.
Which is kind of a big deal in my opinion.
It's a little bit of an advantage.
But you can also go in basketball. When you see Wilt Chamberlain dominating guys who worked at Sears in the offseason, we've had Raleigh Fingers on this show many times, and that's just going back to the 70s. Speaking of working at Sears, I always use that because in his MVP season, Raleigh Fingers worked the offseason at Sears. That's actually a true story. Athletes today are better than athletes 20 years ago, and I think it goes in somewhere around 20-year cycles. So the idea of an athlete being better today than somebody almost 100 years ago, that means athletes today are about 5 times better. Maybe not that much. I'm doing the math wrong. And all you have to do is just look at the Olympics in your base athlete. I'm talking about your base athletic functions. Sprints, long jumps, high jumps, strength. All these records get broken because we have evolved as humans. So,
it's Babe Ruth's swing. He stood with his feet together in the back of the box and lunged forward. You thumb a couple of breaking balls over it with 98 up at his letters. He's got nothing for you, man. That's just facts.
For Eunice, for Kyle.
It's a cold, hard fact.
Arik Armstead, for Matt Barrows, and for Coors Light's Cold Hard Facts, I'm Carmichael Dave. We'll see you tomorrow. Jim Rome is next. Right here on Sports 1140 KHTK. Bye-bye now.